Okay. So today we will be discussing about a little more about the user configuration. In the previous session, we discussed about how to create a user authentication, what's the authentication process, and how the authentication is taken place, and how a user being authenticated at the database level as well as the operating system level. Okay, so today we will be proceeding with the privileges. Okay, so before that, I give you some small exercise where in which say assume a situation where in which a user forgot his password. Okay, a user forgot his password. In that case, definitely the DBA or the system administrator, or sorry, the database administrator can reset the password by giving alter user identified by the new password. But suppose due to certain reasons, say assume that as a DBA you may want to run a particular job as a user. Okay, so but you don't know you don't know the password of the user. So there are multiple options to solve it. One is that connect us. You can tell that you are going to connect as that particular user. As super user, when you are doing, it will not ask for the password. Second, you can find out the current password of that user. Password will be always in the encrypted format. Okay, you will not be able to know the exact password, but you can see the encrypted password as a DBA. Okay, so use that password, encrypted password, or the options will be that you have to store the encrypted password somewhere. You have to save the encrypted password, change the password of the user, and after that reset the password to the original one using the encrypted format. Is that clear? It is using 132 bits algorithm, but what is internal this, they are not exposed. But there are different ways. If you know the encrypted one, if you know the encrypted value, and if you have the super user privileges to the database, then you can reset the you can give back the original password. You will not be able to see the password. Oracle will not allow you to see the password. Okay, but using that encrypted value, you can assign that original password back to the user. Oracle, yes. Okay, so that is what I wanted you guys to try. What I wanted is that I want you to try both the things: how to connect to a user as a super user, and how to identify the old password of the encrypted password of the user, change the password to the a new one, and then again assign back the old password using the encrypted form. Is that clear? Okay, do that and let me know if you are facing any difficulties. Yeah, there are two things, Hari. One is that there is an option to as a super user. You understood the situation, right? Yeah. So you can connect it to the database as another user from the super user without asking the password. Like in the case of operating system, if you are as a root user, you can switch to any other user without asking for a password, right? Yeah. The same way, as a super user, you can switch to another user without asking for a password. That's option number one. Second is then you can change the password of a user before after storing the encrypted password, then change the password to another value, and then after that give back the original password by using the encrypted one. Yes, that's correct. Yeah. Okay. Now we have seen the user, and we have seen the user host are connecting. Okay, and once a user is created, what's the first thing what we did is that we granted a privilege called create session. And we also that one, if you are not giving the create session, we will be getting an error message that the user lacks create session privileges on the database. He is not able to create any session. So when a user, if a user has to connect to the database, on behalf of that user, a server process has to be started. And the server process will be started only when the user is able to connect to the database. So when a user is connecting, he should be able to create a server process, and a certain amount of memory and the background, the CPU should be allocated on behalf of that user. So this process is known as creating a session. So for that, a user should have the privilege called create session privilege. Okay, so let's try to create a user. And we are taking a situation where which assume that we got a request from just one second. Okay, so we will first create a user. Create user test2 identified by test2. Okay, I'm not going out of the default table space and others, so we already covered that things. So now I'll grant the create session privilege to user. So there are two things are there when you're coming to the privileges. There are two types of privileges. One is that system level privileges, and other one is that object level privileges. Okay, system level privilege means it is a privilege is granted at the system level. As the name indicates, it is granted at the database level. For example, the privilege to create a session, or the privilege to create a table space, the privilege to create a another user, etc. are the system level, or create create any table or index, etc. Okay, but system level privileges are also classified into two. One is that local privileges and the global privileges. Okay, local privilege means create a table. Create a table privilege, grant create a table privilege to a particular user. Okay, that's a local privilege. Local privilege means he got the privilege only under his schema. The user can create the table under his schema. Okay, but when you are granting a global privilege, that is create any table privilege to a user, which means he can create the tables under any user. In Oracle, the schema and the user are the same thing. Is that clear? Though, so when you are giving a privilege not specific to a particular object, it is known as system level privileges. System level privileges are can be classified into two things. One is a local privilege and other one is a global privilege. Do you want me to draw a diagram? Is it clear for both everyone? How about Hari and Abdul? Okay. Okay, is this clear now? Let me explain. Privileges are classified into two: system level and object level. System level privileges are granted at the database level, or it is not restricted only to a particular object. Object level privileges are restricted to a particular object. Example: grant create a table to test one is a system level privilege. We are not associating with any objects actually. But the second one, object level privileges, grant select on a particular table to a user. For example, grant select on test2.tab1. So tab1 is a table 1 under the schema test2 to another user. Say for instead of test2, it should have been test3 or somebody. So it is granting the privileges on a particular object to another user. So that is known as object level. Here, in the case of object level privilege, we are specifying an object. But in the case of system level privilege, we are only specifying the privileges and the user who gets a privilege. No objects are involved there. And then system level privileges are again divided into local as well as a global. Create when you are using when you are granting a privilege to a user in such a way that he can execute that privilege on any user is known as the global privilege. For example, create any table. So that user can create the table under any schema. Local means he can create the tables under only his schema. Is that clear now? Hari? Any questions here, guys? Okay. Okay, so what will do, we'll grant the user the create